Hi, it's Maggie the Irish Gypsy here to bring you your March 2019 mid-month readings. We're looking at the last half of March here from the 15th through the 31st. Thanks to everybody for joining us here today. Welcome to any newcomers and welcome back to followers, subscribers. Thank you for those of you who continue to follow this channel and those of you who take the time to send in your support and feedback and comments. Always appreciated. And thank you to all of my clients out there as well, regular and new clients, for keeping me so busy, always so busy, joyfully, happily busy with personal one-on-one readings. It's an honor and a pleasure to read for you, all of you, always. And as those of you who follow me know, if you are interested in a personal reading with me, you can click on the description link below, or you can go to my YouTube channel's homepage and click on the little About button there for more info and contact details. Please feel free to email me directly at maggie1mcguire@gmail.com. I would be delighted to work with you. I can usually respond to your initial request within the same day or the first 24 hours with more info. And scheduling is pretty good too. I do readings full-time, 5 to 6 days a week. It is the sum total of what I do. So I work pretty diligently with both my schedule and yours to schedule a reading in as timely a fashion as possible. And I do a wide variety of readings in all the main areas of life of all different types and lengths and costs. So if you're interested, send me an email and we will go from there. All right, moving right into this. This reading is for the water sign of Pisces, our lovely mercurial fish Pisces, for the last half of March, the 15th through the 31st. As a lot of you know, general readings can always resonate a little differently for everyone watching because there's so many of you watching. So if you know your rising and moon sign, watch those videos as well. It can provide additional clarification or sometimes resonate for you a little more predictively. All right, Pisces, let's see what the last half of March has in store for you. All right, Pisces, we begin with the Nine of Swords, followed by the Magician, next we have the Page of Pentacles, followed by Temperance, and from the bottom of the deck, your overall energy is the Hierophant, or the focus is the Hierophant. It's the energy kind of ruling the last half of March. The Hierophant is about convention, tradition, walking the prescribed path, the path that many people have walked before you, the conventional path. On relationships, it would be meeting, getting to know each other, dating, maybe getting engaged, getting married, moving in together, that sort of thing. Working your way up the ladder, the expected ladder at work. It can represent organized religions, institutions, you know, that moral foundation or code of ethics, family values, cultural values, etc. The perk with that sort of energy is that you get to belong to a large group of people under the shelter and protection of a certain umbrella, because everybody's kind of, you know, doing the same sort of thing, or many people before you have. There sometimes is a certain amount of self-sacrifice in the Hierophant energy of, you know, sometimes you may have to sacrifice a little bit of individuality or self-expression in order to belong. So, you know, whether it's a positive or challenging energy kind of depends on what we're looking at and the rest of the cards as well. But this is kind of the energy around this situation for you in the last half of March. And it looks like you feel rather trapped by it, or by a person maybe which represents that, or a situation which represents that conventional sort of following the rules and walking on the sidewalk kind of energy, because we have the Nine of Swords and the Magician. And now I often say when the Nine of Swords comes up, I don't like seeing this card come up for people because it represents simply a lot of stress, anxiety, worry, and fear. It represents circular thinking, kind of your mind chasing itself like a dog chasing its tail over and over and over again, dwelling on the same thing, focusing only on the negative aspects. And typically this card comes up when someone is in fear of something, usually something which hasn't quite played out yet, or fear of an outcome, and that outcome is always the worst possible outcome. you know, something which hasn't unfolded yet. What am I going to do if this happens? What am I going to do if this doesn't happen? And imagining the worst also, and building it up to be something in your head which is bigger and worse than the actual reality of the situation is. I mean, the source might be quite valid, but this is a card of blowing it up into something, you know, very Armageddon-like, when in fact it's not usually typically this bad. But there's a lot of stress, anxiety, and fear about this. Now, what clarifies it is the Magician, which is a different kind of card. This is a very powerful, entrepreneurial, independent energy. I often look at the Magician as the entrepreneur of the tarot. He's very good at what he does, which is being a magician. He creates things for his audience. And he's very good at what he does because of the path he's walked to get there. This is somebody who has worked very hard, who started out as a page, you know, somebody who has now reached mastery over all of these elements because of all the work he's put into it. Trial and error, learning. This is about taking all your experience, your tools, your knowledge, your wisdom, your resources, your inner perseverance and determination, and pulling them together with external things to manifest something externally, taking your ideas and your dreams and being able to manifest them in reality by using your knowledge, your wisdom, your experience, your tools, and pulling together those resources. A very powerful, independent card. For some of you, sometimes the Magician can show up as a trickster, as a different person. For those of you who may be struggling with a person who manifests like the Magician, because ultimately, what does the Magician do? He creates illusions for his audience. He often distracts the audience with what he's doing in front of them, while behind the scenes, or behind the distraction, he's actually doing something else. So he creates this illusion to kind of hide what he's really doing, to create that illusion. So he can be a bit of a trickster too. For some of you, you may be feeling this stress and anxiety, and sometimes powerlessness over somebody in your life who may be manifesting as a magician. But I think for many of you Pisceans, clarifying the Nine of Swords, you may want to feel like the Magician, being able to, I feel like a lot of you have an idea of something that you want to do, start, build, whatever. And I feel like you may be in a lot of stress, anxiety, and fear because you feel like you can't, in fact, be the Magician and manifest into reality whatever it is that's in your head and heart to do. Because the Magician, in a very practical way, makes his dreams reality, but he does it based on his know-how and his skills and his tools and his resources to be able to manifest that. And the reason he's here is because he spent the time walking that path from a page, knight, queen, king, you know, and he's now reached the top of his game. He's the master magician over all of those things. And for some reason, a lot of you are feeling this stress and anxiety over being able to perhaps manifest something that you have an idea or a dream about, or maybe you've started some beginning stuff. You feel like you don't have the power, the ability, perhaps the experience to be able to do it. And, you know, the Hierophant as the actual energy too can represent that perhaps you feel like you can't, you may be in a relationship or a job or a situation somehow that is, or even a religious path that you feel that you can't quite maybe break away from in order to manifest this new thing or do this new thing, because fill in the blank. I mean, all the things we tell ourselves, because, you know, my boss wouldn't like it, or because I won't find another job that pays as well, or with them as I have so much security here, or because, you know, my family does it this way, or I'm coming from this cultural foundation and I have to do these things because that's the way it's always been done, or I've been in this relationship or whatever for a very long time and I have this commitment and obligation. You know, fill in the blanks, all of the things we tell ourselves when we're thinking about doing something that breaks out of the conventional whatever. Because we want to manifest and create something of our own, and feeling a lot of stress and anxiety about what if it doesn't work, or what if I can't do this, or what if. And that what if always has the worst possible outcome. Now, next to that, we have the Page of Pentacles and Temperance. So the Page of Pentacles. Pages are just starting out. They have that lovely, young, idealistic, sometimes energy. The pages are kind of like the children of the tarot. They're the dreamers. They come up with the dreams, the ideas, and they're eager to start out. Sometimes like a puppy, they're so excited to start tripping over their own head, their own legs. They have a long way to go, but they're at the beginning and they're excited to go. They can represent messages and messengers. They also represent being at the introductory start of a path and being kind of excited about starting off on that path. Now, this is the Page of Pentacles. So Pentacles is earth energy. That's the element which governs the suit of Pentacles. And I forgot to add, I think most of you know, but I always like to try and put in a little descriptor. Swords is air energy, which is energy of the mind, mental cerebral energy. It's the energy of how we think, what our ideas are based on our belief systems and ideology, which affects how we see the world and how we communicate with the world and people in the world as well. So it's energy in the mind, which is one of the reasons why this is a card that represents all this mental kind of chewing on itself energy. So Pentacles is earth energy. And in the tarot, this often represents energy of earth. And Pentacles, if you had to sum it up in a few words, stability, security, things which are grounded and stable. It can represent money, finances, property, real estate, assets, job, things we can see and touch and feel, or the efforts we put into things, the work that goes into things. So the Page of Pentacles is just starting out, and he's just at the beginning of the path of gaining a deeper understanding and awareness of what it actually takes in a very practical way to put something together, perhaps. You could compare it to somebody who's, just maybe leaving home and getting out on his own and starting to go, this is what it's going to take to actually, now we're all about rent and utilities and car payments and all of this stuff, and this is kind of the real world, and this is what it's actually going to take. He's a little slower than his other three brother pages, but he's very solid, stable, reliable. He will proceed forward step by step, cautiously, learning as he goes. Very hard worker, diligent, because he's got that earth energy underneath him. But he's at the beginning of understanding just what it's actually going to take in a very hands-on, practical way to make something work. And he's at the start of that path, and he knows it. He's just starting to understand how much he knows and how much he doesn't know and how much effort it's going to take. And that's actually sitting next to the Nine of Pentacles. So maybe some of this overblown, I feel, stress or unrealistic stress and anxiety and fear you have is coming from maybe you just started to, maybe you're thinking about starting something new and you're thinking about all the details and what it actually entails, and you're just starting to realize, man, this is going to take a lot of this and a lot of that, and do I really have it in me to do this? Or maybe you've started on a new venture and all of a sudden the reality of how much work or effort or details and stuff is in it is actually kind of hitting you now, and you're having all this stress about it. And what clarifies the Page of Pentacles is Temperance. Now, Temperance is kind of at the opposite end of the spectrum of where the Devil is at the other end. The Devil is about severe imbalance, and Temperance is at the other end of the spectrum. This is about perfection, which is about balance, which a lot of people think that the state of temperance means to be patient and be moderate, and it means those things too. But temperance is about the state of perfection, absolute balance, holding opposite extremes in unison and harmony, blending things together, which actually is an active process. A lot of people think of this or think of patience or perfection as some static state that you reach and you stay there, but it's not. To maintain balance is kind of a constant, fluid, fluctuating sort of thing. Maybe external environment changes or people changes, and so we have to kind of constantly go like this to maintain that balance. So it's actually a state of action, not something that you reach and just kind of stay there in a static sort of thing. So this is about balance and learning how to shift and adjust to maintain your balance, kind of like being in the middle of a seesaw or a teeter-totter. If you're on the outside ends, you're completely at the mercy of external events, other people, people's opinions, people's actions, the weather, whatever. And when that goes up and down, you're not at the center, so you most likely will lose your balance and fall off. This is about kind of being in the center of that seesaw or teeter-totter. where you, even when external elements and situations and people kind of make the outside edges go up and down, you might wobble, but keeping your balance is kind of constantly shifting to maintain that balance. So that's what this card represents. And it clarifies the Page of Pentacles. So it's like you're just coming to, I think, you're at the beginning of a deeper understanding and realization of what it's actually going to take to maintain this, because this is sitting next to the Magician. So it's like, I have this idea, this dream, this thing that I want to do or that I'm beginning to do, and I'm just starting to understand what it's actually going to take to keep things going and to actually manifest this thing into reality. And I'm overstressing, overthinking, over-worrying, fearing the worst possible outcome. That's why we do these readings. Forewarned is forearmed. You can totally lessen this energy by knowing this ahead of time. Now, let's pull a few let's pull up a few advice cards, not clarifying cards. Let's pull a few advice cards. And you know what this is about? It's kind of difficult to say. It's a general reading. There's so many of you watching. For some of you it might be in love and romance, although I'm not honestly getting a hint of that. It's mostly outside of the major arcana cards. It's all swords and page and pentacles. So looks like potentially pretty significant, because we have 5 cards on the table here, and 3 of them are major arcana cards. We have swords and pentacles. So most likely something you're trying to actually manifest. It could be job, work, career, project, a dream, an idea you have, you know, something of that sort. Let's see what the advice is. And you may be struggling against some kind of convention or person who disapproves, or organization who disapproves, or a family, or some kind of, you know, like the tried and true path, which it looks like you want to branch off of to do your own thing, whatever that tried and true path might be. It might be a company, a boss, a parent, a partner, something of that sort. We don't do it this way. This isn't the way that it's done, and this is kind of silly. It's risky, you know. So it looks like you may be kind of up against that, and it may be too that some other people's opinions may be causing you to go, yeah, what if they're right? Maybe I can't do this, and it's too much work, and I don't have enough skills or experience or whatever. Let's pull some advice cards. Five of Swords and the Fool. Advice, guidance from Spirit. 5 of Swords. It's a hard-won victory. Sometimes, I mean, this card can have multiple definitions, as all of them can, but this is what I'm feeling from this card. This is a hard-won victory. And I say hard-won because he's obviously won a victory. He's just finished a battle or a challenge. You can see his enemies or opponents or people who didn't agree with him are on the ground behind him. And sometimes that can represent that in order to push through and move ahead from this, you may have to leave a person behind or some people behind. He's won, but he still looks tired, worn out. He's bleeding from a little cut on his forehead. You know, it's kind of like after a big battle or challenge of some kind, maybe we've come out on top, and sometimes we're totally celebratory, and sometimes it hasn't hit us yet, or we're just still kind of reeling from the battle itself, you know, which is kind of like this card. But underneath it is often the fundamental thing of, is it worth it? Sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes it's no. For some of you, is this thing that you want to manifest worth it? If it is it worth perhaps having to leave behind something, someone, maybe a group of people? Is it worth that? If it is, then stand and fight for what you believe in. And then the Fool, which is starting off on a brand new journey, getting ready to start, because the Fool is just about ready to take the first step off the beaten path, because he's a trailblazer. It's a 0. He's the first major arcana card in the tarot, so he's just getting ready to start off, and he's so excited about it. We do want to be realistic about it and practical and pull together everything that we know that we can and have to, because that's what the Magician does. Sometimes the challenge with the Fool is not looking before he jumps. We must make sure there's water in the pond before we jump. But it's about the excitement of moving forward. So I think in terms of advice, Pisces, this thing that you want to manifest or that you're beginning to manifest, you're stressing out about it, might be compounded by other people's opinions or going against whatever this norm is. So you have to ask yourself, how much do I want this? How important is it to me? Am I willing to push through if it means leaving behind something that has been there for a while, maybe even people? If it is, go for it. If it's not, then you need to spend more time reflecting and maybe say no. That's okay too. Every path that has lessons, which is pretty much every path, has value. So I think the important thing here is to actually examine how important it is to you and how much you're willing to do for it, and make your decision based on that. So Pisces, that pretty much wraps up your March 2019 mid-month reading. I hope that I often end a lot of readings by saying I hope you enjoyed it, but some readings you just can't, because some readings look some time periods look a little more challenging, and this one looks a bit challenging, but I hope that you found it helpful and useful. So again, if anyone is interested in a more personal, tailored just for you one-on-one reading with me, live or recorded, you can get more information by clicking on the description link below or going to my YouTube channel's homepage and clicking on the little about button there. Please feel free to email me directly at Maggie1McGuire@gmail.com. I'd be delighted to work with you. I do love and romance, of course, compatibility charting, reconciliation potential, career, work, and finance readings, as well as investment readings, gift readings. And I also do 6 and 12-month overviews, which take a look at everything that's coming in all the main areas of your life over a 6 or 12-month period of time, depending on how far ahead you want to look. They both cost the same. So there's a few different options there. And you can also find me on the smartphone app Instantgo, which has a few options too, but I think it's particularly good for quick answers to the quick, easy questions. If it's a truly complicated situation or more in-depth, probably a traditional reading is best. So, but there's a variety of things to choose from in this world we live in today. So Pisces, I will see you all again in a couple of weeks for the April 2019 general readings. Until then, as always, I wish you joy, peace, blessings, and a happy life. Take care, and I hope to see you back here again soon. Bye-bye.